So let's dive right in here, and let's start with some initial reaction that we have taken away from the ACC and Big Ten schedules. The ACC released theirs today. Now, they did it the way that we like them to do it, which is yesterday they put out a tweet and let us know exactly what time it was coming out and exactly where to find it, and all's well that ends well. I want you to look, if you're watching on YouTube, live or pre-recorded, I want you to look at what Colin's showing you right now. This is the graphic for the ACC's schedule. Everyone always accuses Clemson of a cakewalk, and there's really not much they can do about it outside of their out-of-conference. But check out Clemson's schedule here. I want you to look at the last 4 games. They're the second column down there. They play, there's a bye week in here, but they play at Notre Dame. They got a bye. Then they play at Florida State. Then they have Pitt. And then they go to Virginia Tech. And I don't know how many of you have ever been to Blacksburg, Virginia, period, much less in December. But it's not 72 and sunny. And so Clemson doesn't exactly have the easiest stretch in the world to end the season. Now, half the people I talked to today said, oh, it doesn't matter. We won't make it that far anyway. Okay, well, humor me on the off chance that we do make it that deep into the season. That whole at Virginia Tech to end the season or regular season, that'll be kind of interesting. Also, Miami, Clemson plays Miami. I've actually got a printout of the schedule here. Clemson plays Miami in what would be week 5, which for the ACC is October 10th. There is no universal week 5 this year because we got some conferences starting a month after the others. But Miami at Clemson was a very juicy game that was added to the ACC schedule that previously wasn't there in your local preview magazine, shall we say. Miami does have a bye. They got to go on the road, whatever that means in 2020, I don't know. They have to go on the road to Clemson, but they do have a bye before they play the Tigers. Miami, speaking of Miami, we're going to speak a lot about them tonight again, much to the chagrin of some of you. Very feisty. Late kick inbox when we talked about the Canes last week, so they're relevant again this week, so we got to talk about them again. Miami's early season schedule going to show us a whole lot. I know Greg Rousseau's in the news today because one of their star defensive players has opted out of the season. We're going to talk about opt-outs in a little while, why it's probably not nearly as big a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be to get those precious clicks from you. However, we're going to find a lot out about Miami really early in the season. Remember last year when everyone said, oh, they play Florida in week 0. We'll know everything about Miami. No, you won't. But you will know a little bit more in year 2 under Manny Diaz in the first month or so. Take a look. Colin's showing you the schedule again. I've got a guy on the iJosh, which is a fancy word for my phone, that swears UAB is going to beat Miami in week 1. I do not share in that opinion, but what I am excited to see is they go to Louisville the week before Florida State, and then they got an open date, and then they go to Clemson, and all of that, and you can tack on Pitt and Virginia after that, all that is before Halloween. So you find a whole lot about Miami out, and then how about North Carolina on the other side of this coin? I don't exactly know how this is going to pan out because you don't really even know who's going to be playing week to week, but you check out North Carolina's little run they're going to go on here. They got Cuse, and then they got an out-of-conference open date. BC, they got Vatek at home at Florida State. The point I'm making here is there is no definitive matchup on their schedule all the way up until probably Notre Dame, the second to last week of the season, and then maybe at Florida State or at Miami, the last week of the season. There are really no slam dunk games they'll be underdogs in. And if they are, they'll be a short dog. So could we set up? It's a team that's got a lot of hype around them now. Could we set up for North Carolina to go on one of those runs that sometimes teams go on and half the country's bought in, and then the other half of the country sitting there saying, well, they ain't played nobody. And when they finally play somebody, you'll see. And then you got to wait till like November. It seems to happen a lot in the ACC, by the way. You got to wait until November, late November, as it were, to finally find out. So might they be favored in every game until mid to late November? Now, as for the Big Ten, shifting gears a little bit and shifting helmet grid schedules in front of me here, Wisconsin. I don't know who you guys have in your back pocket, but I don't want to know. I just want to congratulate you on this schedule and your trip to the Big Ten championship game. Take a look at this. Not only do they miss Ohio State, they miss Minnesota. They've got Minnesota, I said that wrong. They miss Ohio State. And then, by the way, it should be noted, they did their schedule differently. They did it in vertical order, whereas the ACC did theirs in horizontal order. I saw someone tweet out today, all the more reason for a college football czar. at least have some continuity about the helmet grid schedules that you put out. But whereas Wisconsin has things set up exactly how the Badgers would want them, you look on the other side of the old proverbial fence, and there's Mike Locksley, and there's the Maryland Terrapins. And, you know, they've been sitting around. They're not necessarily focused on the schedule. They're focused on their quarterback. Are we going to get Talia Tagovailoa deemed eligible after his transfer from Alabama? And in the meantime, the Big Ten said, hey, turn to the side right quick. And then wham, they just hit you in the side of the head with a baseball bat. So whereas Wisconsin has what they have, Maryland plays at Iowa. They play Wisconsin. They play at Penn State. They got Ohio State. They got at Michigan. They got Minnesota. Did they just serve you up the toughest half dozen teams in your conference all in your schedule? Answer, yes, the Big Ten did. So no favors done for Maryland there. Now, that's probably not going to catch a lot of traction on the national radar because not a lot was expected from Maryland this year. But that looked disproportionate, so I had to point that out. Now, notice what they did. You see these little blue blocks? Again, if you're watching, if you're listening to the podcast, this probably won't be your favorite segment we've ever done, but if you're watching and you have the visual aid, a lot of those blue blocks down there towards the bottom. And what Colin is showing you here is the Big Ten has given themselves so much wiggle room. Number one, they start early. And number two, everyone has a bye week in either the second to last game of the season or the second to last week of the season or third last week of the season. It's tough to say, really, when you think about it. And it's kind of a reservoir because not only do they have that, you see that solid blue line at the very bottom? That's a bye for everyone before the conference championship date, which is tentatively set, I think, for the 12th. I think that's when they set that for. So there's a lot of wiggle room that they could spill over there. And if that's not enough, they put a cross-division opponent for, I think, either pretty much everyone or everyone at the end of the schedule. So really, if worse comes to worse, they could also dump that if they have multiple games or some teams have multiple games that they need to make up. So they built in a lot of flexibility. Now, as we sit here and we wait for the SEC to release their schedule, that's not something that the SEC chose to do. The SEC chose to put their flexibility on the front end, and we're going to wait until September 26th, tentatively, to start our season, and we're going to watch all the rest of you wade out into the water, and if sharks don't come up and eat all of you, then we're going to come behind you, and we'll just let you be the guinea pig, and then we'll follow behind at a distance. Well, that's all well and good, but you better hope it works out because there's not nearly as much wiggle room for the SEC. Now, the SEC's conference title game, not scheduled for until December 19th, and you saw the college football playoff put out a revised selection process, which is December 20th now for the college football playoff selection show. So ever evolving is the college football schedule picture of 2020. Many a book will be written on this one day.